Greetings, I'm going to do a little video here. I've done some of these before, but this is a video of how to replace a QFN chip. I think this one's, is it a 40 pinner? Something like that. Anyway, this is an RF front end chip, and it's got a little bit of excessive phase noise from an internal VCO. Quite a common failure mode with this particular device, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace it. This is brand new. I just failed in final test when I get around to testing the phase noise and whatnot. And I'm doing this with a different camera to what I usually use, and it's also got a macro lens on it, so hopefully it'll with quite a wide depth of field, or deep depth of field. I'm no photographer, so I could have got the vernacular wrong there, so apologies for that. Anyway, what I have here at the ready tool wise is I've got two sets of tweezers. One's sort of quite handy for picking up the chip, and it's a Lindstrom thing. And then I've got a sort of cheapo, cheapo one for if you like when these 0402 devices come adrift sometimes accidentally. And you'll see I prefer to use the bent ends. Some people don't. It's personal preference, I guess. Okay. Also, what have I got? I've got some desolder braid. They've got some 0.8mm, which is handy if you need to get rid of a solder bridge between these 0.5mm pitch pins. And I've also got some thicker stuff if I've got for instance, underneath the power pad on this chip, you'll see later I'll definitely use. This is there in case I have to go in there and belatedly fix something. Normally I don't have to use it, but I always keep it at the ready, because nothing worse than getting halfway through a job and not having all the tools at hand. Next thing I have is some flux. This is just a flux pen. Lots of people have different preferences for flux. This is just a fairly normal flux pen. Nothing special about it at all, really. Lasts forever. What else have I got here? Got a set of these snippers. Now, what have I got snippers for? Well, it's because there's nothing worse than having to desperately scrounge around for your desolder braid and finding that the end of it hasn't been stripped off. So I prefer to just get to it, and as soon as I've used it, I will snip off the end so that it's ready for next time. Right, so let's get started. So I've got a cheapo 898 D cheapo hot air station that I got from off of eBay, and I swear by them. They're cheap as chips and they do the job, running at 320 Celsius, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't trust that temperature as far as I can go, and I think I'm on full whack of on the vacuum, on the airflow as well. So just warming this up. This is actually a 6-layer board, so it'll take a little bit longer to warm up than perhaps would be for a 2-layer board, because it's got a ground plane. It's got a heat up around here, which is sinking a lot of the heat away. And I'm just sort of nudging the edge of the chip there where the solder is. I can see a little bit of it starting to melt, but it takes a little while just to get all of the chip melting there. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. And I'll just lift it off. There you go. Put that into the pile. Next thing to do is we need to re-wet the pads. So I'll get the right soldering iron out here. This is just a sort of fairly normal tip that comes with this iron, and all I do here is I need to wet the pads. So I gently apply a little bit of extra solder as well, and make sure all the pads have been re-wetted, and so there's something on there for when we put the chip back on. Okay, now you'll see there's a big problem, because if I try to put a chip on the top of here, it's gonna basically be about sort of a millimetre or so off the top of the board. So I need to suck up some of that solder. So here we go. Now this is where you actually need a reasonable. Let's see. There's a bit of a bridge there. I might have just taken a little bit too much off there. Too much talking, not a lot of concentration, so I'm just going to apply a little bit more solder onto that pad. Now I've got a little bit too much. This is a bit of a knack actually. And now you'll see that I can just take a little bit off there, make sure there's enough flux, possibly a little bit more. Oh, there we go. Oh, is that right? Yeah, that'll do. Okay, problem is if you've got too much on this pad, then your chip won't settle right and you risk possibly getting shorts underneath and whatnot. If you have too little, then the bottom pad won't stick. Now this particular chip, the bottom pad is the only ground connection. So most QFNs actually have ground connections on the pins outside, so I've got a replacement device here. And next thing, I need to just apply a little bit of flux on it, flux up this as well. There's a bit of dirty flux here. You don't really need to get rid of it, but going to anyway. There we go. Grab the chip. Now, next thing is make sure you get this chip on the right way. So there'll be an identifying mark. I lost count of how many of these devices I've changed in this production run, but it's certainly 4 figures. So you'll see there's an identifying mark there, I hope, and it just happened to know off the top of my head that is the way around it goes. Okay, so next, get the hot air iron out again. And I'm going to just warm this thing up. Now the board's already got a fair amount of heat on it. Notice I don't use a preheater, by the way. It's quite a small board, and to be honest with you, it's a lot of faff getting a preheater on there and getting the board all warmed up. So generally I don't bother. So we're just warming this up. Quite a lot of flux there going on now. With a bit of luck, we'll see the device move. Sometimes it doesn't move by itself, but I can see it's slightly off here. So I'm going to give it a little gentle nudge, and you'll see if I nudge it, it actually immediately goes back into place. So you can see that's where my excessive coffee has got to me this afternoon. Okay, so only thing is it looks like I didn't quite put enough solder on those pads, so I'm going to touch those up manually now. Now you'll notice I'm going to use a slightly different iron here. This has got a, I think it's a 0.25mm pitch tip. There you go. See, I did that quite quickly, so I'm going to slow down on the next one. But depends on how much how much solder is on the pads already. I mean, technically, I could probably don't have to really do this one, but there's down here it's really not much solder on the pads at all. So, and it's difficult to do slowly without messing it up. But I'm going to slide, so I just basically just get a little bit on there, slowly go along there, and Bob's your uncle. There we go. And then I went and got some in this exposed wire. There we go. Don't have to do that, but now also this board, this is one of my designs, and question is, do you leave exposed wires on boards? Well, on a multi-layer board, pretty much for me I much prefer to, because then I can I have convenient test points. This is a pretty high a density board, as you can see, particularly around here, and if you can sort of have some spare test points, then so much the better. So for double-sided, possibly not so much, because you can always get at the nets otherwise with other means. But so let's just do another one of these. Yeah. See, now that's what happens when it goes too slowly. So this is where we need a little. There we go. Now, chop the end off, because there ain't nothing worse than coming back to it without the end chopped off. There we go. It's good. And let's do this last one here. It's possibly gilding the lily here, but there we go. Nice. I did also wet this a little bit, but again, not too fussed about that. Now, that's all very well. Looks all a bit gleaming, but there's a bit of flux left over there, so I'm just going to get some of this flux clean stuff. I don't know if that's going to focus in. There we go, flux remover. I wouldn't leave the kids with this. It's got some horrible chemicals in it, I'm sure. But anyway, I don't know what the recipe is, but yeah, you wouldn't want to sniff it too long. Okay, so this has got a brush on it as well, which is I highly recommend because it does sort of push that flux off a little bit. It looks pretty darn good, I'd say, to be honest with you. Can't really complain about that. And that's how to change a QFN. And hope you enjoyed that. Cheers!